The Demons overcome the injury-ravaged Saints. A power surge helps Port thrash Gold Coast, and Decos does it again. Nick stars as Collingwood stays on top. This is the round so far, brought to you by AAMI. This is the round so far, brought to you by AAMI. I'm Riley Beveridge. That is Kane Cornes. Kane, let's start at Marvel Stadium tonight, where Melbourne jumped a game clear inside the top four with victory over St Kilda.
And let's start with Christian Petracca, because he was the match winner for them. Started forward. I reckon he played about 75-80% time forward, and something different from Simon Goodwin. That's his fourth goal. He kicked 4 straight on the back of 0 goals for, and there's the final siren. Simon Goodwin should be thrilled with that performance, the changes that he made with their lineup. Ben Brown was important and thought provided a target. Melksham into the side provided a spark and something different. Petracca forward, Petty back. So the moves that he made, and then a bit of extra reliance on those that did get the midfield minutes, including Jordan and Viney and Sparrow and some others, really stood up in there tonight for a really important win for the club.
I thought Jake Melksham, as you said, was very important as a target inside 50, as was Christian Petracca. He kicked 4 goals for the game. He would have been downing himself last week. 0-4 in Alice Springs against the Giants. They go on to lose by 2 points, but tonight he was so influential in the forward line.
Well, he's a special player, and you know, I've been critical of his ball use. I reckon in the last 4 months, 4 games, he hasn't used the ball well at all. Not only in front of goal, but his field kicking. But he flushed them tonight. Have a look at that. That's as good as you can strike a footy. So I don't know, the selfless nature of him to win a Brownlow potentially as a midfielder, to actually sacrifice your game and go forward and do this because the team needed it, says a lot about the individual. And there's not many players in the game that are so good as a midfielder, but then can go forward and be equally as effective. So that's a tactic I think they'll have to stick with for the rest of the year.
And brave putting him forward, given Clayton Oliver was out of that midfield as well. You mentioned you were critical of his delivery earlier on in the season. What about St Kilda's entries inside 50 tonight? Because, geez, they turned the ball over going forward.
This was repetitive. It was like a bad movie. And they allowed Melbourne to take 23 intercept marks. And this has been an issue right throughout the year. So that's Stephen May. He took 8 intercept marks tonight. That is a huge number considering the AFL record is 10. It's not the opposition intercepting defender has got a hold of Melbourne. So 5 intercept marks last week. Harris Andrews had 9. That was nearly a record. Vloston had 6. And Sicily had that amazing performance against them before the bye with 8 intercept marks. And this is why. Their ball movement is slow, it's wide, and it is so that the interceptors for the opposition just would love playing against the Saints. So I'm not sure whether they're a better side this year than they were this time last year. They sacked the coach off the back of it, and this is a clear that Ross Lyon has been unable to fix this year.
So they've now lost 3 of their last 4, St Kilda, and it goes from bad to worse because they had a number of key injuries throughout the course of the game. Max King was subbed out after the first 15 seconds after hurting that troublesome left shoulder. Now, he hurt this in pre-season. He missed the first 9 matches. He goes off after just 15 seconds. Seb Ross off after 5 minutes with a hamstring strain. And then Zane Cordy at quarter time failed a concussion test. Josh Battle, Hunter Clark, Nick Caulfield, Brad Hill, Tim Embry, they're already out.
Yeah, no, it was a bit of blow for them. They lost 3 players early on in the game. So that's the one there with Cordy, with May taking the hanger and sticking his knee right into the back of the head. So he was concussed and they went 3 down early in the game. The King injury allowed May to go back and do what he did, because he would have had his hands full, you'd think, with Max King in that defensive role. He's off, which allowed May the freedom to take those 8 intercept marks. Melbourne,
as we mentioned before, already had their own injury issues. Clayton Oliver didn't play again tonight. He's been out since round 10. This was strange. So halfway through the third quarter, or early in the third quarter, he's down in the room stretching out that hamstring.
I actually like it. I think it keeps him engaged with the group, keeps him around the group. He's in his kit, like he feels like he's a part of it. And he may as well. What else is he going to do? Sitting in the stands getting cold with that hammy. So I don't mind him seeing him in his footy gear and strengthening up that hammy. Hopefully we get him back towards the end of the year and before finals, because imagine injecting him into the midfield with the luxury of playing Petracca forward. Would love to see Cozzy Pickett do more. He's not doing enough, not working hard enough, had no influence once again tonight, Cozzy Pickett. So if they can get him up and running to the form that he was playing within the first month of the season, there's another avenue to goal for them.
Let's head to the Adelaide Oval now, where Port Adelaide beat Gold Coast. It was off the back of a third quarter surge. They were actually behind at half-time, the Power. Then they kicked 9 of 10 goals in the third term. And I tell you what, Kane, they were all absolute belters.
There's Harlem Globetrotters sort of stuff here. Have a look at some of these goals that were kicked. So this is a serious football team. So Houston flushes it again from outside 50 for the second week in a row. Stakes not as high tonight, but equally as effective. Palpepper goes the torp from 65, and that goes home. That's the sort of year it's been. What an important player that man is. Not big numbers, but big influence. Connor Rosie's kicked 5 goals in 2 weeks, and he was the best player on the ground again tonight. What a goal that is, celebrating with the crowd. So when they look flat and when they look down in games, they've got a remarkable ability to be able to flick a switch, and they did tonight. We'll get to Gold Coast in a minute, but these are the numbers in that third quarter. Plus 55 in disposals, 19 in contested, and that's what Gold Coast have prided themselves on, as they have in the clearances. They were smashed, and not for the first time they've been opened up in a quarter. We know Carlton kicked 8 goals in a quarter against them. We know Collingwood kicked 7 goals in quarter 2 last week. So that's a huge issue for Stewie Dew, and one that he may not be there to solve.
It's a big worry for Stuart Dew. Not a great night for the King twins, both of them, because Ben King was subbed off in this one. Wasn't for an injury-related reason. Halfway through quarter 3, he only had 1 disposal. The second week, he didn't hit the scoreboard. Cut a frustrated figure on the sideline.
So I was looking for the response from the week that they'd had. Stewie Dew's job had been questioned. We hear that the players were upset about it. We hear that there was going to be a statement. And Ben King is now a leader of the footy club. Touches the ball once before he's subbed off and allows Aaliyah to take 6 intercept marks. McKenzie went off with that ankle injury. We know Port Adelaide's personnel issues means they don't have many options, tall defenders. Ryan Burton had to play taller than what he would have liked to, and Ben King produced that. So bitterly disappointing from him and some others at Gold Coast. I thought there'd be more effort tonight, and I didn't think they'd capitulate in the third quarter. It's going to be a long, long week for the coach, Stewie Dew, off the back of the speculation last week.
Let's go back to Trent McKenzie, because he was subbed out of this one with what looked like an ankle injury, a really nasty rolled ankle in that first quarter. Now, Tom Cleary is still a month away with that back injury. Mitch Georgiades is out for the season. They've got some ruck issues as well with Lysette and Teakle out at the moment. How do they go about replacing Trent McKenzie?
I don't know. This was my concern for them. They couldn't lose a key defender and they couldn't lose a ruckman, and they've lost both. But every time someone comes in, they step up. So they've got Ollie Lord. Does he come in? Does that shuffle the decks? You'd hate to put Finlayson back, but there's always the option to do that if Ollie Lord can hold up. And then Hayes came in and held up somewhat tonight in the ruck. But, yeah, it's a big issue for them. They've got Curnow and Mackay next week with Aaliyah as the only tall defender. Tom Jonas, the captain, probably comes back in, but we know he's about 188 centimetres, so that's not going to help a lot. 13
straight for the Power now. Let's go to Giants Stadium, where Greater Western Sydney moved level with Essendon and Adelaide at 8 and 8. And it was off the back of Stephen Coniglio, who was fantastic throughout this one. He had 30 disposals and 3 goals, 10 score involvements. He had 13 and 2 at quarter time.
Yeah, I'm thrilled for this guy, because I thought his career was at the crossroads. It really was. He was dropped when he was the captain of the club some years ago under Leon Cameron, and was really struggling. What role was he playing? He was pushed out of the midfield. They were trying to make him a half forward. So to actually hang in there and keep working at your game at his age with the challenges that he's been through, and to produce form like this, and I know you've kept a note on his year to date and some of the numbers that he's producing.
So putting up career highs in all of these categories, so disposals, clearances, inside 50s, score involvements and metres gained. You mentioned before that he was dropped when he was the captain of the club in 2020. He then got a demotion of sorts when they elevated a couple of others to make him co-captain, then dropped from the captaincy altogether this year to accommodate for Toby Green. I think what he's doing in spite of that, it might not be adversity to some, he still plays a very important leadership role at that football club, but to be putting up these numbers, given what he's been through over the last 2 years, it says a lot about him, I reckon.
I think it's a great story. And what I think the success of the Giants this year has been built on those senior players standing up. Like Ward's still playing unbelievable football. Toby Green does it every week. Coniglio, Kelly will get to, was down today and well beaten by McGuinness, but he's had an All-Australian worthy season. Taylor behind the ball is a young man, but he stands up and was great again with 5 intercept marks today. So the foundations that the senior players are laying for the young group coming through, I reckon they're in an excellent position, not to challenge this year, but to challenge in the next 2 or 3 years. They've got another great draft hand this year.
You mentioned that he had to stand up. That was because Josh Kelly was tied down by Finn McGuinness, who's proving himself a really quality tagger in this game. He had 6 disposals, Josh Kelly, which was the lowest of his entire career. He was averaging 28.8 disposals before this game. He'd also kicked 7 goals in the last 4 weeks. This was a lockdown job of sorts.
I absolutely love it. I thought the discipline that he showed today was just as good as I've seen for a long time, because we don't see it. Kelly wasn't expecting this, I don't reckon, because no one gets tagged anymore. But the discipline to do this, it goes to show that it still has a role in the game. And they were a bit rattled by it. And it was actually a credit to Hawthorn. They got on top from centre bounce. They outscored them from stoppage. And in this game, I thought they coached really well once again from Sam Mitchell. There was some energy that had been lacking in the last fortnight. And if they didn't kick 2 goals for in the last quarter, and Will Day missed a couple of easy ones, that's probably a game that they should have won. I think the difference was the Giants kicked 3 straight in the last quarter. Hawthorn kicked 2-4 and missed some easy opportunities.
Let's go to the Gabba now, where Brisbane was expected to absolutely thrash West Coast, and we thought it was heading that way when they led 45-0 after just 20-odd minutes. Yeah,
it's training drill stuff again. So what is it, 14 losses in a row once again for West Coast. So good on them for trying last week. They couldn't produce 2 weeks in a row. And this sort of vision, regardless of the fact you're playing against a good side on their home deck, this is too easy. Opened up in the first 10 minutes of the game. So don't give me fatigue. Don't give me young players. Just be honest and tell us that there was a lack of effort. Out-tackled by 12 again. So yeah, all the positivity that they showed last week at home against the Saints lasted 1 week, and a lot of the Brisbane players dined out, and it was a nice percentage boost for them once again.
One of those players that dined out is our Saturday star, and that is Jack Gunston today. Missed 3 games after dropping himself alongside Daniel Rich, going to the coach and dropping himself, but he came back today, 20 disposals, 6 goals, 15 score involvements.
It's good coaching, I think. So they told us maybe a month to do a mini pre-season, or I'm not sure they put a time frame on it, but that was what was speculated about. But you thought, OK, we're playing West Coast, we're playing at home. What a great opportunity to get a key player who I think has still got a very vital role to play in this forward line. Can you rely on Danaher and Hipwood in the final? I don't know. He's a really nice foil with the versatility that he gives you, and he capitalised today. And he's feeling a lot better about himself as he goes to bed tonight than what he was through stages this year, which has been a struggle for him. So good coaching to bring him back in. And he's not going to do this every week, but I still think he can have a real influence for the Brisbane Lions in their pursuit of the premiership this year.
Let's get to our AAMI clangers now. Who covers clangers? AAMI does, and we'll stick with Jack Gunston. He was split open on his forehead as well. West Coast managed to pull off the little bit of cladding that they had around it, but have a look at his teammate, Cad Moreno, who just came to the rescue here, pulled it off, said, I've got you, mate. I've got your back.
He's a bit rough, isn't he?
Yeah.
What's happening here, Riley?
So Zach Bailey has the shot on goal. It's going through. It's a long goal, and Eric Hipwood absolutely steals it from him on the line.
He's not happy.
He was not happy.
Look at him.
About this at all.
I'd like a lip reader. I think there's the word selfish and there's an expletive. Did they jump the gun here?
Well, Lockie, if it was due to play his 200th, he then got a 1-match suspension a couple of weeks ago, missed out, so it's the 199. Caleb Poulter thought he was still playing for Collingwood.
He's going the wrong way.
Turns it over for good measure.
Used to play for them and was confused. And then Jamari Ugle-Hagan with the premature celebration. He thought he flushed that. He goes over to Mason Cox. He says, how about that? And Coxie goes, you missed it, you clown.
It's a good AAMI clangers this week, a very funny one indeed. We will stay at Marvel Stadium, though, Friday night footy, where Collingwood stayed on top of the pile with a victory over the Western Bulldogs, and it was their superstar, Nick Decos, who was absolutely fantastic. 29 disposals, 2 goals. He had 11 clearances.
Look at that handball.
Oh, that's one of the best clearances you'll see this year, I reckon.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, I'm not sure, I didn't think he had this inside ability in him. We saw what he did across half-back and devastating, but he'd had 6 clearances in the first quarter, and you're thinking this guy is just going to a new level if that was possible. And I'm glad they left him inside, because I thought with Jordan De Goey coming back in that they might send him back, but that's where he's got to play. That goal, he ran all the way from the back line, his back transition, no one went near him, and he finished. He gets the intercept mark here and flushes one from 50, so genuine, devastating goal-kicking midfielder now. But the thing that I've noticed in his game, he doesn't get ahead of himself and he's not selfish. So if his teammate is in a better position, he often handballs to them in a better position.
Yeah.
He doesn't think I'm going to do it myself and kick the footy, even though it was a beautiful kick. So we saw how creative he was with his handballs and setting up his teammates. He's like a really unselfish point guard in basketball.
Yeah.
They get as much joy out of passing an assist to their teammate who scores as they do scoring themselves. So he's an excellent point guard in this game.
The time that he has on the ball reminds me of Scott Pendlebury. It was a big night for Scott Pendlebury across Friday night. That's where we'll find our moment of this weekend. He breaks the AFL-VFL record for most disposals of all time. He's averaging 25.9 across a 373-game career. He's not slowing down at all, already signed through to 2024. It just makes you think what he can do.
Yeah, I think he breaks Boomer's record. That's what I think.
You reckon?
I think he gets the game's record by the time he is done with the sub rule, with sports science, with the way that he looks after himself, with his versatility. So there's the number, 9,664. Look at the names. There's Jeff Brown presenting with the ball after the game. The CEO, Gill, was in the room, said some nice words about Scott Pendlebury. So there's the names that he has overtaken in this exclusive group. Hard to get a better set of names.
How far down are you, Kane?
I'd be in the sixes, I reckon, off the top of my head. But he gets to 10,000 and he breaks the record. And he's got 14 top 3 finishes in the Copeland Trophy.
It's incredible,
in a
isn't it?
successful year. And I reckon he's top 3 again this year.
Yeah,
so Decos more, Pendlebury probably. So imagine if he gets 15 top 3 finishes. He's got his eyes set on another premiership, which will be more important to him.
You've undersold yourself, Kane. 7,060.
Oh,
so
there
you
you go.
cracked 7,000. Now, you want to go behind the goals to take a look at a potential weakness of Collingwood. There's not too many.
There isn't, but you've got to look for opportunities. And in the first 15 minutes of this game, it looked as though the Bulldogs forwards were going to have an absolute field day because of this. They give you a look, don't you? If you get them off turnover and you move the ball quickly, they're that aggressive and they back themselves in that they essentially don't play on anyone as a defender. Like, they just allow the aggressive nature of their positioning, and we'll see that they always shuffle up to the most dangerous opponent, but that leaves players out the back and opportunities if you move the ball quickly with speed and on the angle, and if you lower the eyes and you don't launch the ball too deep to allow them to come across and intercept and spoil. If you're launching within 70 metres, like the Bulldogs are here, moving the ball sideways and then that short hit-up kick there, you're going to get opportunities. So Ugle-Hagan took 5 marks inside 50. He could have kicked 6. Yeah. He was inaccurate again and let them off the hook. But that's the watch on the Pies. They're not going to change the way they play. But in their losses, we saw Taylor Walker get a hold of them and others this year, Brisbane earlier on in the year. That's the opportunity you've got.
Ugle-Hagan, Norton and Waitman took 13 marks inside 50 between them. It was a similar story for the Western Bulldogs in the sense that they continue to allow teams to have a massive run on against them. Have a look at this, Kane. So this is the point in the game where runs are allowed. So against Melbourne, they were 11 points up. They conceded 6 straight. They lose by 50. They're in the game against St Kilda. They concede 8 straight. They lose by 51. It's been a theme across the course of the season for them.
It's been a theme across the course of Luke Beveridge's coaching career, dating back to the grand final, where they were almost even at half-time and they got smashed to the likes you wouldn't have seen before. Same thing against Fremantle in the first final last year. So time and time again, it happens. It's why I've got not a lot of respect for the Western Bulldogs, because they look good at times and then they just get absolutely open up because they don't want to defend and they don't know how to shut down the opposition when they get momentum and they get a run on, and it's cost them big time again this year. That's the reason they won't win the premiership this year, despite having as good a playing list as any other team in the comp. That comes down to coaching to me, and it's been disappointing from them for the opportunities they've squandered.
Let's go to Thursday night footy at the MCG, where Richmond won a thriller against Sydney. This was a really good contest. Thought the Swans had them in the first half, but the Tigers, fair play to them because they had 2 debutants. One of them ruled out early with a hamstring. That was Jacob Bauer. But they really cracked on late in the game.
You thought Buddy was going to have a big say in the last quarter, and he just sensed the moment. Jack Graham is one of the best finishers in the AFL. And I know that's a big compliment, but on the run, from anywhere from 50 to 35, he's almost my number 1 in the game. How McInerney doesn't score a point there? Look at the score.
Just have to tie
Just get a point, and they mucked around with it. Franklin missed a set shot that didn't score. They need a point, and then it's this man again. He's an elite finisher. He's clean. You're not the quickest player out there, and then Sydney took a risk from the centre bounce and left Dustin Martin all alone inside forward 50, and he makes you pay, but the game was already done there. So it was off the back of their contest work, their stoppage work in the second half. They beat Sydney up around the ball, dominated stoppage, dominated centre bounce, and I thought their pressure was excellent as well. And Sydney, who played in the grand final last year, incredibly disappointing season.
Dustin Martin was fantastic, as was Shea Bolton. So he had a really quiet start to this game, only 3 disposals to quarter time. He finishes with 31 touches, 9 clearances, 10 score involvements. And he had 4 direct goal assists as well.
Look at this. That's as good as you'll see this year. I mean, that's freakish. Speak about Nick Decos. That's Nick Decos-esque. Outstanding. And what he does, he can go inside. He can devastate from stoppage. But then he can also, well, here we go, we're seeing him from centre bounce again. So if you let him have a free run towards goal, streaming inside forward 50, look out. But then he does this. The forward craft and his aerial ability is what separates him as one of the best players in the game. And that's what I was speaking about with their pressure. Yeah. They were all over Sydney, and the amount of rundown tackles and turnovers that they caused. And there's that forward craft again. So he was the best player on the ground. I thought Dustin Martin was probably second. Nancurvis we'll get to. I thought he was probably third. But when Martin and Bolton do that, not often does the opposition win.
Only one real low point for the Tigers, and that was Toby Nancurvis being sent directly to the tribunal for this bump on Jake Lloyd. I reckon he's looking at 4 weeks minimum.
I don't think he can't get 4 because DeGoey got 3, and it's not quite as bad as DeGoey's. I think it's probably the equal to DeGoey. Okay. I thought DeGoey was probably a touch worse. He was lucky to get off with 3, so for me he'll get 3. But I called DeGoey's a cheap shot. I'll call that exactly what it is. It's a cheap shot. A player who probably weighs 30 kilograms less than Nancurvis has disposed of the ball. He's helpless, he's vulnerable, and you clean him up with a bump. You know that you can't do that. I was really disappointed that not one Sydney player made a statement physically and even remonstrated with him, even if after they saw the replay. And not only that, they then allowed him to be one of the more influential players on the ground. So that was really disappointing from the Swans and says a bit about their character this year.
All right, Kane, well, it's an important time of the year, and that's because kids aged 14 and under will have free entry to games across rounds 16 to 19, plus heaps of entertainment and giveaways just in time for school holidays. For more on the Kids Go Free offer, go to the URL on your screens right now. We're to our ladder now, Kane, because it's getting towards the business end of the season. The Pies are on top, but the Power have won 13 straight. Brisbane and Melbourne are a game clear, at least inside the top 4. Then you can throw a blanket over just about every other side of the comp.
Yep, you can. How good's that?
It's
terrific. Awesome. There's opportunities everywhere. The Saints look really vulnerable inside that top 8. I think Geelong are going to come with their draw. Richmond's draw is easy as well, so they'll have an opportunity to boost their percentage. Gold Coast are done now, they can't make it. Nork and Sydney and Fremantle with a very faint hope, but they want to get it done comfortably against the Blues tomorrow. All
right, the remaining round 17 fixtures kicks off at GMHBA Stadium on Sunday with Geelong facing North. Essendon against the Crows, that's going to be a massive one at Marvel Stadium. And then Freo against Carlton at Optus Stadium to finish off the weekend. But it's at Marvel Stadium where we find our Canes question for this week. And it is, can the Crows overcome their road woes?
I think they can. I'm not sure Essendon have enough winners forward of the ball in Adelaide's defence, even though Butts won't be there as being strong. But then up the other end, Adelaide's forwards are really going to challenge the Essendon defence. So the star quality that the Crows have got inside forward 50, indoors, under the roof, match them in the midfield, give your forwards an opportunity, and I think Adelaide will overcome those road woes.
Great show from you, Kane. Big week coming up on afl.com.au. Access all areas on Monday, gettable on Wednesday, inside trading on Thursday. Stay tuned on the website and we'll see you next week on The Round So Far.